Good afternoon. This is Professor MLD with Critical Talk, which is a production of Muslim Network TV. We can be seen live on YouTube, on Roku, on Amazon Fire, and on Facebook. Today, I'm talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the theater. And I don't think, of course, in the audience out there are loads of theater goers and folk, but we haven't really had a conversation about, unless you're in theater, about what makes the theater tick, whether it's Hamilton or big Broadway stage or it's theater in the round, which we'll be talking about today. But I've got loads of questions about getting actors, getting them to perform. How do you get something produced? When do you know that it's ready for the stage? What are the jitters and the nerves you have about audiences? One set of stuff. The other set of stuff is the social performance of theater. Theater, like other kinds of art, is a kind of social thermometer. In theater, you can tackle issues that people probably really don't want to talk about, but will talk about it once they see it acted out. So, with that in mind, I have with me today Jamil Corey, who is the founding artistic director of Silk Road Rising, an art making and art service organization, and it really is that shares conversations about Asian, Middle Eastern, and Muslim American communities. It also shares information about regular American communities too. I just wanted to add that to the thing. A theater producer, playwright, essayist, and filmmaker. Oh my God, there's too many titles. Corey's work focuses on Middle Eastern themes and world themes. I'm going to talk about obstacles and some other things. So those are world themes, they're not just Middle Eastern themes. And questions of diaspora. He is particularly interested in the intersections of culture, national identity, religion, and belonging. Corey and his husband, Mark Jelani, created Silk Road Rise. Also with me, I'm sorry, it's Malik Jelani. Shoot me later. Also with me is Michael Najjar. He's an associate professor of the really of the theater arts with the University of Oregon. I'm sorry, I'm hearing an echo. I'd like to. He holds a PhD in theater and performance studies from UCLA and an MFA in directing from York University. He is an associate member of the State Directors and Choreographers Society and the oh, no, I know that word, Dramatists Guild, and an alumnus of the British American Drama Academy. You mean there's something we share with Britain, huh? Okay, Lincoln Center Directors Lab, Directors Lab West, and RA, oh gosh, WI screenwriters. Did I get all that out? I mean, you have more credentials than the law allows. It's incredible. Um, I have always been exceptionally fond of the theater since a child. But I didn't learn about the social import of theater till much later. I think I might have even been in college. But then lately, when I moved to Chicago and uh, Silk Road, it wasn't called that thing. It was Silk Road Project, if I'm not mistaken. Was here in Chicago after 9/11, and I became a fan. And then I started asking all kinds of other questions because I'm right up on you guys and the actors. Like, oh my God, suppose somebody blows a line. Oh my God, don't let me open my mouth while they're acting. I will just ruin everything. And so I have all of these questions and some later about what you're doing now. But I would like for you, Jamil, to tell us about the origins of the Silk Road Project, which later morphed into the Silk Rising.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for having us on this afternoon. Silk Road Theater Project was founded in 2002 by myself and my husband, Malik Galani, as a response to the attacks of September 11th, 2001, and in particular, a response to the anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, and anti-South Asian backlash that gripped the country and that continues to this day. We saw a real void in representation on Chicago stages and on American stages, and that in the rare occasion when an Asian or Middle Eastern or Muslim story was told, it was not written by or told by people from the communities. So we decided early on that we would be kind of a playwright-focused theater in that we would work with playwrights of Asian and Middle Eastern backgrounds who created protagonists or central characters of the same backgrounds. So you as an audience member are taking that journey. And it was not going to be celebratory, oh, it's great to be, Persian, or it's great to be Korean, but it was going to be complex, three-dimensional renderings, like many of the shows that I believe you saw, Dr. Adine, over the years.
No, I saw one show. It was about a Korean family. I think they were Korean.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was Julia Cho's Durango. Such a good play. Such a good play. So we created this company to really help change the narrative about what we call Silk Road peoples and to shift some of the representation. We had a history of representation that was either bad representation or no representation or misrepresentation, and we wanted to align that with the truth and with honest experiences lived in our communities.
Well, I think that is just awesome, and that's what I'm saying is when it's not just Asian, it's Middle Eastern, it's not just Middle Eastern, it's not just the diaspora. Because people like me came and loved my students came and many of them, because I was a professor of Islamic studies, came because for them it was the first time they heard about Middle Easterners writing something and performing on stage. So it was an eye opener. Malik, with all the acclimates behind the name here. Let me ask you a more academic question.
Sure.
What did you do to get your PhD in theater?
Well, it's a great question. And what's really interesting is I started off as a practitioner. And so growing up as a Lebanese American, Druze American, I was brought up doing theater that was by non-Middle Easterners, and so I ended up doing Shakespeare and Sam Shepard and all of the great kind of American canon. And I went through an entire undergraduate degree doing that. I went through an entire graduate MFA degree doing that. And only when I got to UCLA did I start to encounter Arab and Middle Eastern texts. And even then, not all of them were plays. They were really novels, etc. So, what's very interesting is you learn theater in a very Western sense as a practitioner, and then you really have to seek out the theater of Middle Easterners or South Asians or others, and you have to then incorporate that, and that's where my scholarship came in, working on Middle Eastern American theater, Arab American theater, and whenever I teach theater history, I always infuse my classes with African theater topics, Middle Eastern theater topics, and Asian theater topics, because we have such a myopic view of the theater sometimes in this country. So it's very important for us to make these interventions to change the canon for the better, in my opinion.
Wow. I was thinking of something I watched on TV the other night, which talked about there was this one actor, and he was pretty famous. He got an Academy Award and maybe a Tony, something else. But they nixed him because he was a character actor.
Mm.
He was in the character of whoever, and I was trying to get him. So tell me real quick. We have those people who are the same no matter who it is they're playing. And then we have those who manage to be somebody else no matter who it is they're playing. What's the difference? I mean, is that a different school or?
You know, Jamil, if I can take this one quickly, I was just going to say, I really think it comes down to theatrically trained actors are used to playing characters. They really spend a lot of time understanding dialect and posture and movement and style in a way that film and TV actors don't. Film and TV actors are basically cast, and I hate to use this term, but it's a kind of typecasting where you are who you play. And it's very difficult to break the mold of being typecast if you're in TV and film. Theater actors, and I think we can look at some of the great theater actors that we've seen in history, like Mr. Denzel Washington, or if you look at other amazing actors like Al Pacino and others who really they broke the mold by playing characters early on. And some could argue that now they play kind of versions of themselves, but they were theatrically trained. And that theatrical training, I think, is something that's necessary. And film and TV don't give theater enough credit for creating the kind of world that makes these actors so wonderful. Oftentimes they do a play on Broadway and then they're off to film and TV land. But I personally think it comes from theatrical training that gives them that ability.
So is that what the Brits did that's got all the black people upset? Because the British actor or actress can all of a sudden lose that very distinctive accent and then stop it. Oh, they're rude. They're what? They're not African American? Oh my God. Throw them out the bus. But it's a very different training. And in one program, they were talking about Americans tend to just pick people up off the street. You look a role, you sound a role, whereas in the UK, people are actually trained.
Well, they have a subsidized theater. Let's not forget that. The state subsidizes the theater. You go to drama school, you study very intensely at drama school, and then there's actually a national theater circuit that you then go into, and you start working for years on the theater circuit throughout Scotland and Northern Ireland or wherever it may be, and then by then you've been highly seasoned. You go to work for the Royal Shakespeare Company for another decade or so, and then you get your TV work, and you're already a brilliant actor. Here, we train our actors for 4 years, and then we set them out, and there are no opportunities, and they're struggling to make it every day. There's a big difference, and I think it just shows that a government over there actually cares about the arts, whereas here, most Americans pay about $1 a year to the National Endowment for the Arts, and they're complaining about it and wanting to cut the NEA.
Right.
What can I say?
Well, we got to come back to that. Jamil, you're at the other end, kind of, because you're right.
Yes.
How does one think of what to write? I mean,
that's
all of the stuff, the crap that's happening out there, you focus narrow in, and it's never, because I've watched your stuff, it's never just on one thing. You weave in all of these other voices and things. How you do that?
Well, I may follow a very different process than many playwrights, most playwrights. I tend to start with the politics, and then I weave in the personal and the characters and kind of the world of the play. So I'm very interested in what might be called the dramatization of ideas or the dramatization of debate, and how we live that, how we embody that as characters, and how our politics inform our personal lives, our relationships, our choices, our decisions, our affinities, and so forth. So I do think I may be a bit outside the norm, that I tend to start with a lot of debates and divides that I'm interested in exploring, and then fill that in with hopefully human stories.
But I got that. No, I really don't have it, because if I did, I'd be a damn playwright. But there's all this other stuff. I think it was Korean that I watched. I'm typically the ignorant American, okay? This was a play about a diaspora, somebody returning home. It was not just the words in the actor and actresses' mouths. It was the lighting. It was the choice of the setting.
Yeah.
It was in this very confined space.
Yeah.
I was taken away, and transport without getting up. How does that happen, guys?
Well, I want to say, first of all, we're so proud of what we can do in our little space in a church basement with 85 seats, and that we're able to transform that space through design, with each show, and make it a very different and unique.
But how do you come up with? And I want the house.
It's a time machine, isn't it? It's literally taking you from downtown Chicago into another world through all the elements of theater. And I think that's the joy. It starts with a playwright like Jamil giving us this beautiful dialectical play. Yeah. And then it takes a director and a set designer and a costume designer and a props designer and a lighting designer and all the designers coming together and meeting for months and months and months to realize Jamil's vision on that stage. And really that's the beauty of the collaboration of theater. And what we do is we bring all of our talents to bear, whether it's a choreographer, a director, a musical director, to help tell that story in the most theatrical, the most artistic way possible, so you are transported. That's our job. And so that's what we relish doing and we love doing. And we're happy that it happens.
They do it damn well at Silk Road Rising.
I think we have to remember, and although this might sound very obvious to those of us who work in the theater, but everyone is a storyteller. A costume designer is telling a story. A set designer is telling a story. Yeah. The lighting designer. I will never forget a first rehearsal for a play where we invited a number of community members and friends of the theater to attend. And a note that was sent to me by one of the attendees, not a person in theater, but she attends a lot of theater. And she said, it never occurred to me that a set designer and a costume designer would ever meet, and that they would ever share time and space together. Wow. I think she just thought they sort of did their work and mailed it in. And I'm not saying that, from a place of disrespect, but that was, yeah.
Well, no, what we're going to do, I don't want to stop the flow, but we need to take a quick break. And I want to come back to some of these how-tos. And I am living proof that you succeeded. But I can talk about the theater in ways that I could not have before. We'll be right back.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
60 shots! No me!
No justice!
No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world?
You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward.
That lesson learned has brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Welcome back. This is Professor Amina Al-Din with Critical Thought. And we're talking about the theater with Jamil Khoury and Malik Najjar. Do I sound better now?
Yes, we can hear you.
You sound great.
No, I just realized I had my exhaust on the whole time.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I'm losing it. It's called pandemic stress. Move on.
We all have it.
I can't get to Silk Road Rising.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I want to go back to some more of these how-tos. You know, you often hear people, I hear it all the time, I'm going to write a book. And I say, okay, what are you going to write about? And they come up with, I don't want to say it's mundane, but it's not something that's going to sell beyond their family.
Hmm.
Screenwriters, every screenplay doesn't go. Some really go. And one of the things I heard before we came on air was that you've got something in the works that's waiting for November the 9th to see if it really went. What is that?
Yes. So Fuad Taimur, who is a playwright that we love and adore and have a long working relationship with, he wrote a play called Twice, Thrice, Thrice. And it was a play that explored friendship between three Arab women and the specter of polygamy that kind of, yes, yes.
I did.
This specter or question that complicates their relationships to one another about polygamy within Islam. And the play has been nominated for Outstanding New Work by the Joseph Jefferson Awards, the Jeff Awards, the Chicago Theater Awards, and also for Best Scenic Design. So we are so proud of all of the artists involved. The award will be announced at a virtual ceremony on November 9th. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And the play was extremely well received, and it has also been published.
Now look at this. You see the young lady in the foreground. The older woman, in the red or pink, I don't remember. But I want you to look at that set. It has a kitchen kind of bar. But then the next thing I found myself was in a living room. I don't know if that's one of the pictures. And I don't know if it was the lighting that took me out of the kitchen and put me in the living room, or if you did something when I don't know, sneezed or something. Because this is a very confined space that so much is happening in. I'm gonna ask my producer, go over one picture. Are these pictures of the same play in this set of pictures?
No, I believe it's the only picture of that.
Okay, but it was very, very interesting as to how you got all that stuff in there.
Mm.
How you played with the lighting, how I got ticked off with the young lady, how I was feeling so sad and sorry for the older woman.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to go beat up on the other. I mean, I was going through a range of emotion. This woman sitting behind me was doing it too. So, and then we were both trying to be quiet, which was not working so well. But it is, I don't think I can stress that enough, that it's almost minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then I looked at a huge production like Hamilton, and I have to admit, it might be me getting old. I had to watch it twice to keep up. I had to turn on the closed captions. I couldn't keep up. And I can see the popularity of having so many words in a minute.
Yeah.
But it was very difficult for me to feel it. It's the difference between just enjoying something, like the pyrotechnics in a film,
Mhm.
and then looking at the Third Man or one of the old Abraham Lincoln things like in the 1930s or 40s, or whenever it was they did it. Um, that's different. And the this kind of theater, um, you're getting into the content.
There's
How
something special about that, isn't it?
it is.
There's something special about being that close to actors, having them right in front of you, and you can't help but feel the palpable energy coming off of those bodies in a small space. And I personally like small spaces better than large spaces because I feel the proscenium arch gives us a distance that it's palpable. You can feel that distance. Whereas when you're sitting in Silk Road Rising, that space in that basement, you feel so close to those actors. You feel so transported into that place that
Yeah.
it's magical.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about this playwright because the screenwriter knows where this is going to be produced.
Mhm.
And he's or she, I don't know any female screenwriters, I'm sure they're low, but Jamil is writing so that he takes us on a journey from a point A to a point Z. You know what I mean? So how do how does the writer get coherency in a stepwise fashion that I can walk along with you?
Well, I don't know if we ever get coherency. I think that's something about the collaborative nature of the art form, that we are all learning from each other in a process. And also the fact that every performance, I mean, this is the thing that I love about being able to watch many, many performances of all the plays we produce. They're all different. And, the actors are bringing a different type of energy to each performance, and the audience is bringing a different type of energy. And the engagement between audience and actor really shapes how we experience and receive a story. So I think that, there's a lot of talk about the magic of theater. There's a lot of talk about the cathartic and the transformative power. And the reason there's a lot of talk is because there's a lot of truth. And so, I don't know that any one of us in an artistic role, playwright, actor, director, designer, dramaturg, could tell a story in a coherent fashion without one another. Obviously there are all sorts of other ways to write, but we write dialogue for it to be delivered, for it to be embodied, for it to be performed live or in digital form, as we're seeing more today. And so, I think that we enter into a series of relationships that require trust and that require respect for one another. And I think that is really key to a successful artistic product.
So, Malik, tell our audience, what is a dramaturg?
The dramaturg is actually, it was a term that was once used to mean director in Europe, but over time, the director-dramaturg split into two different roles. But the dramaturg is meant to be the person who understands the text on a level that is unparalleled by anyone else on the theatrical production team. They understand every comma, every exclamation point. They understand the grammatical structure. They understand the syllogisms. They understand the alliteration. And what they do is they bring this wealth of literary knowledge to the director, to the actors, to the designers, in an attempt to help them understand that the text has fundamental clues that are hidden within it, especially with classical texts like Shakespeare, Marlowe, Johnson, etc. There are clues buried in those texts that can give you the choices you need to act that role, to direct that play, to design that costume. It's all there, but the dramaturg they're really the archaeologists. They're the ones that take the text apart. And if you've ever gone to a dramaturgy session, like at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, for instance, there are papers all over the walls. There's writing everywhere. There are books stacked to the ceiling, with just information on every little textual note imaginable about these plays. So the dramaturg is an essential collaborator in a theater production. And unfortunately, with theater budgets being so low and the funding situation, we aren't able to hire dramaturgs very often, and that's unfortunate. They need to be part of the conversation, and often they are not.
Wow. Go ahead, Jamil.
I would say that for us at Silk Road, the dramaturg plays such a critical role. I mean, to Malik's point, but not only in terms of the production, but also how we frame and talk about the production. So our audiences will receive dramaturgical materials, usually in the form of e-newsletters and mailed material before they attend a performance, and oftentimes after. And we use our program book and our lobby space to very generously provide, that kind of dramaturgical depth. When we are asking someone to experience a cultural perspective or a historical perspective that they may not be familiar with, or that they may have a lot of disinformation about, we feel it's necessary to provide that context. And so I think that the dramaturg plays such an important institutional role, in addition to a critical production role.
Well, it seems to me that society needs to know, or maybe they know and they forgot, the importance of theater. I know we're in a pandemic, or we're in and we're out. I mean, for some, like your president, we've never been in. But short of that, art plays such a critical role in societies who have dreams of being free. Let me put it like that. And to tell the stories of migrants, which one who has never been anywhere probably has never thought of, issues like polygyny and the hurt it causes on one side, and on the other side, if I remember that young lady who I wanted to strangle correctly, I got what I wanted out of this deal. And then the friend who's kind of caught in between, but issues which many communities find very sensitive issues, or issues where they need to think more. And that is minus that, in much of it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, those of us who do Islamic studies have been all over the Middle East. One of the things I found painfully absent was the theater. The only time I found something that in its most vulgar form resembled the theater was in Oman, in Oman and Saudi Arabia and some of the other places where they were hiring nickel and dime performers and putting them in theaters, but not because they were serving any purpose. So given that, how do the two of you think about what's going on now? How does one even begin to think about a screenplay about a pandemic?
Well, I'm actually, if theater was ever necessary, it's necessary now, when there's a crisis in democracy.
Yeah.
When you silence artists, that's when you should get very nervous, because that's when I think the real democratic voice begins to be squelched. And I think it's just the most unfortunate thing that COVID has hit us at this time, and the theater has been silenced, because if we ever needed it to speak out against what's happening, it would be at this time. I mean, if we look at the great moments in American history, for instance, the civil rights movement, if there wasn't a Lorraine Hansberry, if there wasn't an Amiri Baraka, if there wasn't all of these great playwrights, a Langston Hughes, what would have happened to our understanding of that world in that time? Right. And now, when we need them for this crisis of democracy, they're unfortunately not even able to speak live. However, we do have Zoom. We're trying to use Zoom as a platform now. I'm teaching students in my playwriting class right now how to write Zoom plays, because no matter what, we've got to get these messages out. Plays like Jamil's are speaking about the complex world we're living in and the dialectics that we're facing, and we must keep speaking despite the fact that we can't be in a live space together.
Go ahead.
There's a theater center in Moscow called the Meyerhold, and it's a really extraordinary space. And I had the great honor of Moscow Alert being performed there in Russian translation. And this is a venue with several theaters and classrooms, and it's a multi-floor. And we asked the executive director of the theater center, have you sold many tickets? What does the audience look like? And she basically said, oh, the people will show up. Yeah. It was packed. But it wasn't just packed, it was packed with 20 and 30-year-olds who, it's Wednesday night. I don't remember what night of the week, and we're going to the Meyerhold because we're going to get something political. And we're going to get the talk back. I was actually, people were criticizing Putin. I thought like the police were going to burst in this kind of, but it was a space for dissent. It was a space for protest. Russia is not a democratic system of governance. I mean, they have something that approximates elections. But in these spaces, and we saw the same in St. Petersburg, where the piece was performed, that it was the people who were looking for outlets of dissent and of community. Right. Were going to the theater, and Malik and I kept thinking, oh, we wish this was the case in America.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Connor, can you do the trailer for Obstacle, please? Because that has a lot of stuff going with it for today.
Yeah, thank you.
This was supposed to have gone smoothly. That just goes to show you, messing around with the theater.
You want a Muslim extremist? I'm a Muslim extremist. Me. I'm an extremist for equality. I'm an extremist for feminism, for inclusion, for democracy, for art, poetry, literature. That's Muslim extremism.
Hey, ho ho! Islamophobes have got to go! Hey, ho ho! Islamophobes have got to go!
The time has come for us to enter the next phase of our story. The proposed Al-Andalus Library and Community Center, a magnificent new complex we hope to build in the heart of downtown Naperville.
I'm Muslim. I've been to Al-Andalus, and I ran the hell out of there. Women can't lead prayers. Men and women can't even pray together. We're stuck in the back behind a partition.
So while they're here petitioning to build a mosque, we can't build a church or a synagogue in Saudi Arabia. It's against the law.
2468, no more anti-Muslim hate.
2468, no more anti-Muslim hate.
Does he not see there are Muslims in this room? He's speaking as if we're invisible, as if we don't have feelings. Hello, flesh and blood human being here. Can you see me?
They're extremely intelligent, my Muslim friends. And yet they have this naive, almost childlike belief that in the end, the American people will always do what's right. What America are they living in? I haven't found that place.
Religions united cannot be defeated. Religions united cannot be defeated.
Fascinating.
Mhm.
You could have written that last week.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it would have fit so perfectly. But you see, coming out of there in Silk Road Rising, Jamil is there most of the time. Every time I've been there, he's been there. You know, you can come out and talk and ask questions. You know, people can hang around for a little bit in the lobby and further discussions, which I assume is one of the goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're right, we so need that now. I think I'm on pins and needles. I just want it to be November 4th.
Oh,
I don't know that it's going to be good either way. I know one way is going to be exceptionally bad, you know. So it becomes here is where the theater becomes not only a storyteller but a guide. Is teaching us how we can have conversations.
Mhm.
Um,
I, can we think about the great playwrights in history, the Aeschyluses, the Sophocles, Euripides, the Shakespeare, the Wori Soyinka? I mean, think about the great artists. They were prophets of their own time. They were telling us things that we needed to listen to and hear, and that's where the theater lived, and that's where the theater breathed, and that's why we needed the theater so badly. And there's something strange about our particular nation, which is, I don't know if it has to do with the fact that we're generally better off than most places in the world. I don't know if we're too comfortable. I don't know if it has to do with our education, but there's something about this idea that we don't really need to hear these things. You know, we're good. You know, if I can watch my news story, or news channel, I'm fine. But you know, these playwrights are prophets of a kind. I don't mean that in a religious sense, so please don't send me any hate mail. But they're prophets in the sense that they're foreseeing what's coming, and they've been telling us about it. And if we listened, like for instance, August Wilson was one of these prophets. If we listened to what Mr. August Wilson was telling us for decades, we would know that what's happening right now has been a part of the American fabric for a long time, and it's always bubbling under the surface and trying to destroy our democracy and our civility. So, you know, this is the kind of thing we need to do as a nation. We need to listen more to these people who are trying to tell us the things that we need to hear.
But you know, I also think that there is a need for you guys to teach us how to read a play.
Mm.
You know, I remember I don't remember where I was, but picking up by the first time I encountered an August Wilson play. And I'm saying, okay, where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm still looking because I'm used to the novel.
Sure.
And it is a novel of a different sort.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had the privilege of having someone to teach you how to read a play, then you're, you know, like Genius Me saying, I don't know about this.
Sure.
You know, I will say, and Malik, I think I'm venturing into your territory here, but if departments beyond theater departments in the academy were teaching plays, if literature departments, if American studies departments, if, you know, you can sort of go down the list of, you know, regional studies and so forth, if history departments, if political science, if dramatic literature was integrated into the curricula of all of these different, you know, I think it would go a long way toward resolving the problem that you're speaking of. We've so siloed theater in general, and perhaps plays in particular, because, you know, I remember having a conversation with the people who run a very large award-giving body that honors writers, and they had all these categories: poet and journalists and nonfiction and fiction. I'm like, what about playwrights? You know, and because playwrights were, you know, there were no plays, and I thought it was astounding. And everyone's sort of like, well, what's that? I mean, they knew what that was, of course. It sort of had never occurred to them. And this was this really, accomplished committee of people who read a great deal of literature, but did not think of theater of plays as part of the world of writing, as part of the.
Academe is one of the most ignorant places you can ever run across. And everybody in their silo wants to be the king of the silo, which means you don't go and look around the corner. Even today, I was making, and this is rare for me because I usually don't like to show up where somebody can really get me. I was talking about a Shakespeare. Was it Macbeth? I think it might have been Macbeth or something. And I was talking about the Bard and how the Bard used to go through town. And everybody's looking at me. I could have been talking about Saturn, I said, okay. You all didn't read Shakespeare? Even I read Shakespeare. I can't say I enjoyed it because I got lost in the language, but I read it.
Yeah.
And they were just looking at me like, what are you talking about? So it's even less today. And many academics are very uncomfortable in increasing their body of knowledge. As if it's going to do me. I want to learn everything about everything, which is why you got all my how questions. How do you do this? Not that I'm going to do it, but I want to know.
Sure.
And I'm going to take our last few minutes. Oh, we got some minutes. What do you think about the future? We're the one country where there's no federal support or government support for the arts, which is a testament for me as to how much we really think about democracy. I guess it's supposed to take care of itself, but minus the arts, you have no democracy. Even autocracies like Putin's Russia has the arts. It has the symphony. It has these things that don't have to go out and beg for money to be there. Talk to me.
It's the saddest statement ever for a nation. And to be fair, there is some state and federal funding, but it is so minuscule.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're spending billions and billions of dollars on nuclear weapons, and we're spending, a few $1 million on the arts is a perfect picture of where our priorities lie. We have a crisis, and I cannot believe that so many Americans are just willing to allow this to be the case. Now, listen, there are other problems. We have homelessness. We have difficulties with so many different social issues. I'm not
a play about it, so
right.
that people who may not get to see it up close and personal, it would mean something different.
Yes, it personalizes the experience, doesn't it?
Exactly.
If you can watch one play about one person who's suffering from homelessness, that may inspire many people to stop to help with homelessness. So, the arts matter. It's sad that the NEA got rid of their slogan, because a great nation deserves great art. They got rid of that. Now it's art works, which just sounds like, you got to work. Art is a function. And so we really need to reprioritize, in my opinion, and rethink how we're approaching our society, or else we're going to go down the road of the Romans instead of the ancient Greeks, which is the empire. And that empire did not end well, and it did not do well for many people.
Well, and the fact that we are so marginalized as a sector, the fact that people aren't, I understand there was a time when Arthur Miller was discussed across the kitchen table when these great works, and that has not been the case during my lifetime. That has not been. I think it serves this nefarious purpose or function of the collective dumbing down and the collective numbing of a public. The very fact that we're in the position we're in, and that a large percentage of our fellow Americans seem to think this is fine or acceptable, or maybe even,
But I don't think they know. You know, I honestly think it's gotten the fear quotient has come in and it has taken over rational thought. But before we end, I know that you all had summer programs for children and wonderfully had them for old folks like me. I didn't get a chance to come. But what are you doing now? What is the way forward?
Well, we're actually busier than I can remember in a long time. You'd think a pandemic would be, and a big part of that is how do we continue to serve school-age populations and seniors. And of course, one of the things that I'm very excited about is pre-COVID, we had just started to develop programs for seniors and school-age students together. So this kind of intergenerational learning and this, intergenerational sharing of stories and creating of art. I am happy to report that we are doing virtual residencies and that we are reconnected with a number of the Chicago public schools. The senior communities are a little more challenging, but we're in talks to make that happen. And we're building kind of a parallel virtual company that will serve us well moving forward. Obviously we're all eager to get back into classrooms, to get back into the theater, to be gathering in place, all of that. But this has been an opportunity to rethink and to learn and relearn. And we have not given up on those commitments. They remain front and center.
Your website address so we can publish it here?
Absolutely. That's silkroadrising.org. silkroadrising.org.
So I would encourage everybody to keep up. This is Amina Al-Din with Critical Talk. I've had the wonderful time, too short a time, which means I might bother you all again.
Yes.
And speaking with Corey and Malik Najjar on this one, I've learned so much. I mean, believe me, I was taking notes, and this is being so I'll have a whole new set of questions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Al-Din.
Thank you. Thank you. A real honor. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Walaikum salam.